welcome back to my channel, Book Talks with Yo. My name is Yoanna and today I'm sharing with you what to avoid when writing romance. Last week I shared with you some of my tips for writing good romantic books. But today, this week, I decided to share with you some things that you really need to avoid like the plague when you're writing in this genre and when you are crafting this story. As well as that, I will share with you some mistakes that you can repair before they've even been made. So without further ado, let's get into the video and write some good stories. One of the most annoying things in any genre, but in particular with romantic books, is miscommunication. Don't even get me started on this. Like, I get so frustrated every time I'm reading a book, and this miscommunication just there are characters who are it seems like everything's falling apart. They're all sobbing or crying or are angry, and it's so simply because they can't have a normal conversation. They don't speak to each other and they only assume what the other is thinking or feeling or something like this. I seriously just want to throw the book across the room and just stop reading. Only that I'm usually reading on my ebook, so that probably won't survive this flight. But yeah, I just either want to DNF the book or I want to get inside this book, just lock the characters in one room and not let them go until they have a proper conversation. Like, seriously, if all the problems in your book can be solved by a simple conversation between two characters that they are currently avoiding, I'm sorry to say that, but I probably won't root for them and I probably won't care about them, and yeah, I would DNF the book. Although I'm bad at DNFing, so imagine how much I must hate this trope. But yeah, if the problems in your plot can be solved by a simple conversation, then I'm sorry to say, but your plot is not that strong. And I know that there are some exceptions to this rule, like maybe sometimes you need a little dose of miscommunication in your novel in order to move the plot forward or something like this. And that's fine as long as it's a little dose of miscommunication and as long as you make sure that by the end of the book this is resolved and the characters are having a normal conversation. And that can be done also if you want to show a flaw in one of your characters, which will be something that they will overcome with time. But again, make sure that it's not too frustrating for the reader, because otherwise they will DNF the book and not reach this character development part that you've been building towards. And make sure that by the end of the books, at least, well, both of the characters should be able to communicate properly with each other. But if you are using it as a character flaw, make sure that at least the other character knows how to communicate and is not avoiding it, because yeah, as I said, if all the problems in your book can be solved by a simple conversation, then I won't root for the story and I'll probably be too frustrated about it. Okay, my next tip what to avoid is something that I actually mentioned in my previous video where I talked about how to write romantic books. And this is making the relationship the most interesting thing about your characters. No, please don't do this. This is like a major mistake. And I mean major mistake. Not as big as miscommunication, because this is still the thing I hate the most, but it's still something that would spoil your book. Because sometimes I know that there will be a lot of importance put on the romantic story. I mean, it's a romantic book. Of course, their love and their relationship is important. But this doesn't mean that they should cease existing like separate people and having personalities of their own. Like, no one does this in real life. No one is this shallow. So please don't make your characters one-dimensional and just flat, simply flat. We don't have, in most cases, we don't have this in real life, so we shouldn't have this in your story. You want interesting and compelling characters in order to make your readers root for them. And if your readers are not rooting for your characters, they won't be rooting for their love story, they won't care about it, so they won't read the book. So yeah, just make your characters strong, compelling, interesting, original. Give them strengths and weaknesses, give them dreams, give them fears, talk about their motivation, what is driving them forwards. Maybe if they are working already, talk about their profession and how they're doing there, or if they're at school or their university, talk about their interests there, talk about their friends, show us your character communicating with different people, and not only with their love interests, like friends and family or someone else, whatever it is for your plot. Also, just make them characters on their own, make them interesting people. If you want your readers to care about them, you have to make them compelling on their own. They should be enough to grip your reader's attention and hold it there. Because, as I will talk about later in this video, we don't want the love story happening on page 5. And if you want me to continue reading until page, I guess, 70, for example, where the love is going to happen, you have to give me good characters. You have to give me interesting characters. Tell me what do they do on a rainy day, or what do they think about when they're alone, and all this. Just make them compelling in order to make your readers invested in your story. Okay, next one is kind of connected to the previous one, and this is creating stereotypical characters. This is probably the thing you kind of can get away with, but it will mar your novel and will make your readers roll their eyes at your characters and probably forget all about them the second they close the book. Which, of course, is not what you want. You want them thinking about your book, you want them thinking about your characters long after they finish reading it. So, what you can do, but firstly, what are stereotypical characters? I think you know what I mean. This is the brooding, secretive man with dark past, or the girl that is not like the other girls. And I've used this in a book when I was 11, so yeah, but avoid this. As well as that, we have the girl who is the most beautiful creature that has ever walked the earth, but of course she doesn't know this. Or I don't know, there are many examples of stereotypical characters. I'm sure you've seen them in books. Oh, what comes to mind is, yes, this bad person that's only good with it when they're with their love interest or something like this. This is the worst. But yeah, all those are characters that you've seen in books. You've probably read many books like this. You've probably seen them in movies as well. But the thing is that they are already stereotypical. And there is nothing that bad in this, but they're overused and your characters will expect what will happen, and you don't want them to know what will happen at the end of your story from the beginning, because they just won't be invested enough to continue reading. They won't be interested. So what you can do, the good news is that you can do something with those. If you absolutely need to have one of those stereotypical characters for your plot, you have a great story idea, but you need to use one of those types of characters, what comes to mind is the Regency romance novels, because most of the men in those are the sulky, brooding type of men. So yeah, sometimes you need to use them. But the good news is, like other cliched tropes, there is a way to work this into your story without spoiling it. And this is to firstly deconstruct the stereotype and then subvert it. What I mean is, let your readers think that this is the usual story they've read many times, and just as they're thinking this and they're expecting the ending already, sweep them off their feet and make your story unique. But again, be really careful with this, because you don't want them to stop reading before the big revealing moment. Alright, next up is another trope, sorta, that I talked about in my previous video, and this is love from first sight. Yeah, you know, this immediate, immersing attraction. Yeah, don't do this in your book, please. Think about real life for a second. Imagine you see someone on the street, you don't know them, you've seen them for like 5 seconds, you haven't said a word to them, they haven't talked to you either. You probably won't be thinking how much you love them by the end of the day, and I really hope this is the case. And so won't your characters. Like, they can see someone and they can be attracted to them and they can think, okay, I like that one, I'm interested. But they won't be saying I love you 5 minutes later or fantasizing about them the whole day or something like this. This is not something that happens in real life, and therefore it's not something that should be happening in your story. Instead of having them love each other, having them kiss on page 5, I don't know, page 3 even, I've seen those books. Instead, show us how the relationship is gradually progressing. Show us the characters getting to know each other. Show us them discovering different parts of the other person. Show them finding common interests, or show us finding different traits from the other person. Some that they like and some that they don't like, because no one's perfect. Show us them getting to know each other better. Show us them having fun, becoming friends. Shows them laughing, shows them making each other smile, and all that sweet, sweet banter that we are here for. Just because your readers will be guessing that those two would end up together because it's a romantic book, they probably will, of course, but this doesn't mean that you should not show us this relationship progressing and use this to build the characters, make their story, like their character arcs more complete. And yeah, this will move your plot forward, so don't rush things, just take it slowly and progress gradually. Next one is a thing I hate even more than miscommunication, and this is romanticizing toxic and harmful relationships. And by we I mean different authors and people who just like to write, we should stop romanticizing harmful and abusive relationships, because it's doing a lot more harm than we can imagine. And some of the most common unhealthy and abusive and toxic relationship things we have in books are, this possessive thinking, this overprotectiveness that becomes abusive even, because people are threatening other people, or forbidding them from going out or talking to other people, or this excessive jealousy that turns into abuse most of the time, this guilt trapping, and even those moments where, one person is clearly abusive, clearly a bad person, but the character just can't help but fall for this. And I guess, you can think of which book I'm thinking about when saying this. But yeah, there are a lot of examples of this. Unfortunately, this is still present. And there is no excuse for writing this. There is no excuse for romanticizing toxic relationships, because, as I said, it's doing a lot more harm than you can imagine. And, well, what I say here is, I know that at some point we all either fangirled about this or even wrote such things, because at some point it was so romanticized that it was even normalized. Like, I remember when I was 14, I think, I had this idea for a good girl, bad boy trope type of thing. And in this story, I, for whatever reason, have decided that it was so sweet and so romantic that he was pursuing her although she had said no. Fortunately, I didn't get to write this book. I didn't write it, and I'm really happy, because I don't want to read a manuscript now where he grabbed her by the wrist and told her to stay or something like this. I'm glad I didn't proceed with this. But what I mean is, I'm not judging you. There was a time that we were all writing this or thinking about this because it was so romanticized and so normalized that we were like, why not? It works. But yeah, now it continues to be romanticized, it continues to be normalized, and it's just wrong. It's simply wrong. This is not the type of relationship that you should be glossing over and romanticizing and talking about and making others dream about this. I mean, we should stop romanticizing this, because people start thinking that this is normal. People start thinking that this is something they should wish for, and this clearly is not the case. And sometimes, if you need to portray an abusive relationship, please make sure you make it clear that this is not the right choice. This is not something the reader should be rooting for. Make sure that this is shown as a bad example and not as a good one that readers. Okay, I'm confused. That readers should be dreaming about. And I know I'm going into a rant here, but I really want to say this because I'm sick of seeing this in books, because it's so wrong. And last but definitely not least is your character ignoring clear red flags and blaming the other man or the other woman. And I guess this is somehow connected to my previous point about romanticizing toxic relationships, but it is also something I wanted to mention and make clear that you should avoid. And, we've all seen this character that is so in love that they're ignoring every single bad thing that this other character does, that their love interest does, and ignoring all the red flags and saying, yeah, it's fine. And what is worse, they are never, like, this person that is actually guilty, they are never to be blamed for. Like, no, they are innocent, you know, because they had a bad past or they had a difficult past. It's okay for them to mistreat me like this, which is not. And, but yeah, this other woman or this other man, they're the devil. No, they are the devil though. And what is worse is that sometimes I've seen authors excusing their characters with this, oh, they had a dark past. Like, yeah, we people go through things, but this doesn't give us the right to mistreat others. And I'm so sick of seeing this in books. Like, okay, he had or she had a difficult past. She or he had a difficult childhood or something like this. Okay, this doesn't mean they have to be a bad person. Or if they are a bad person, don't excuse this in front of me. Don't tell me this is right, this is okay, and I should tolerate this or something like this. And again, there are some exceptions. If your goal is to intentionally show us the character being so gullible and ignoring red flags just to realize later on that they've done this and realize that they've looked through rose-colored glasses and that's why they didn't see the red flags, that's alright. But just make sure that by the end of the book, your reader knows that the character has made a mistake and is not left with the impression that love excuses everything, because this creates those unhealthy and toxic and harmful behaviors and expectations that we talked about in the previous point. So that pretty much wraps up this video. So now go and craft those great captivating romantic stories, avoiding these cliches and mistakes. I really hope you enjoyed watching today's video, and if you did, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on my new videos. Please let me know down in the comments, what is the trope that annoys you the most in romantic novels? Thank you again for watching, and I really hope to see you all next time. Until then, have a smiley week. Bye!